Hello, everybody, and welcome to a look at the week ahead for you for the week beginning the 5th of February, 2016, taking you through the 11th of February, 2016. Sorry, I got this to you a couple of days later than usual. Had a nasty cold the last few days. Really just kind of now recovering. Just saying welcome to you from a holiday let. We're staying in a couple of temporary places while we're looking for a more permanent apartment in a couple of different locations. This week we're near the New Forest in the UK. And I wanted to talk to you this week about the continuing, pardon me, Rahu-Jupiter conjunction. And you may hear me do that a couple of times. But before we get into Rahu and Jupiter, just to mention that I will be talking to Kapil Raj this week about Rahu in general, going into depth about Rahu and understanding Rahu to a very, very profound level. And I thought I'd cover a little bit of that this week because it's important in terms of understanding what Rahu is doing in connection with Jupiter. And I thought it really interesting that everybody this week, in terms of the, because I do a weekly video involving a planet through a particular nakshatra, and everybody wanted to look at Jupiter and Ardra nakshatra this week. And Ardra is actually ruled by Rahu. So there again, we had the Jupiter-Rahu connection. So Rahu is a downward-looking planet. Think about an energy looking down. When an energy is looking down, chances are it's not going to be aware of everything that's going on around it. The planet becomes very introverted. It's seeing what it's thinking it's seeing, not necessarily what the reality of a situation is. And so it is with Rahu, because Rahu looks downward, that things can sometimes not really be as they appear. We'll think things are one way. We'll think we're getting involved with something for one particular reason, when actually the reason that we're involved with that is something completely different. We had a specific plan in mind when we made a particular connection, because it's a lot about connections this week. And we had a particular plan in mind when we put our energy behind a certain cause. But now we're recognizing that the reason that we were there might have been something completely different, right? Rahu and Jupiter are in Uttara Palguni nakshatra. Both Purva Palguni and Uttara Palguni are about the sacred contract, right? That's, on one level, the agreement that we make with our own soul about things that we're going to do, whether those things are wise for us, whether we have the whether we feel confident about heading in a particular direction, whether we're able to partner with ourselves wholeheartedly. And it many times plays itself out in the level of partnering with others, or partnering with others in a common cause, things along those lines. And because of the position of the sun in Aquarius this week, and the sun not having ample strength with which to support Uttara Palguni, well, a lot of things that we thought might have been one way are completely different. And it doesn't leave us with these great feelings of confidence, because Uttara Palguni is associated with Aryaman. Aryaman is the, one level, the god of contracts and agreements. But on another level, he's a seasoned fighter. Right? He always gets involved in a lot of fights, a lot of struggles. But when Uttara Palguni is not very well disposed like it is at present, well, that sense of confidence is not there, or we get involved or fight for things on a level that is not really founded. There's not a firm foundation for it. So those are some of the things that are going on in the background. Pardon me. In relation to that, we have a few different aspects that are also going on. One primarily with Mars and the Sun. The Sun has, over the course of the week, is going to be applying to an aspect with Mars. And the Sun is in Dhanishta nakshatra. Dhanishta is about not getting quite as involved in a process, not thinking that it's us that is really doing something, but instead allowing ourselves to be moved through, becoming an instrument for the divine, becoming an instrument for the universe, allowing ourselves to be acted through rather than thinking that we ourselves are doing the acting, right? And with this particular energy, because Mars is in Vishaka Nakshatra, which is connected with Jupiter, and because of the fact that Jupiter is in Virgo, which doesn't give Jupiter a lot of strength, well, there's a tendency to want to try several different solutions to a problem. But these solutions that you're coming up with to a particular problem, or solutions that you're coming up to a issue with a particular connection that's gone wrong, or solutions that you're coming up with in connection to a cause that actually meant a lot to you at one point, but now doesn't really seem to mean that much, and you'd like to kind of get away from it. Well, you're willing to try all these different things, but all those different plans and schemes that you're trying to come up with are thought plans designed by the ego. They're not necessarily what you need to do. And you can spend a lot of time getting involved and wrapped up and attached to all these things that you think you need to do with this particular energy. Or you can actually find yourself in a position where you're allowing yourself to surrender to the process, right? To kind of slow down a little bit, right? And I'll tell you where I'm going with the slow down bit in a moment. To slow down a little bit, really take a pause for perspective. Mixed into the equation, we've got an aspect going on between Saturn and the Sun, and in addition, Saturn to Jupiter. And Saturn is in Jyeshta Nakshatra. Jyeshta gives one the capacity to rise above a particular situation, to really see it with perspective, to be able to take a situation that appeared to be one way, but now is completely baffling you, right? And you just feel completely dumbfounded. And because you're coming up against all this resistance in association with it, well, on one level, you may not actually see that as beneficial to you, but it is, because it's giving you an opportunity to go to a higher level with it, to really take a look from a higher vantage point, really understand the playing field that you're dealing with. Make some new plans, make some new ideas, but those plans and ideas, as we're talking about with the Sun in Dhanishta, are not ones that you need to scheme up yourself. And at the beginning of the week, that's what you're actually feeling might be the case. Instead, they are things that you need to allow for. You need to pay attention to what's happening and just be willing to become a willing participant in the plan that's being acted out all around you. Move along with the changes that are happening, right? I should mention in association with that too, at the beginning of the week, we've got the moon in Mula Nakshatra. Mula Nakshatra is about that concept of, really thinking that if we do this, that, or the other thing, if we apply that extra amount of force, the situation is going to turn in our favor, right? But then something happens and it doesn't work out. And what we tend to do is we become even more egocentric and we become even more amped up about a particular situation, only to again find out that we're not getting the result that we want. Well, at the end of the week, the moon will be in Revati Nakshatra. So over the course of the whole week, we've got the moon moving through the Sattvic Nakshatras. Sattvic meaning balanced, clear energy, inspired energy. It's the more spiritual tonality of the nakshatras. It marks the journey home and the final release from a particular situation. So what starts one way at the beginning of the week is going to end up in quite a different position. And even though you may end the week in a particular state of limbo and kind of in a wait and see situation, everything is shifting for the better. And over the course of the week on the 8th, we've got a new moon in Dhanishta Nakshatra. In that particular nakshatra, that is saying, if you surrender to the flow, if you allow yourself to be an instrument that is being played through. And those are very profound words, because when it comes to Dhanishta, there are two symbols. One is a mridanga, which is a drum that you often see Shiva playing, right? And it's got a pellet and two different sides of it made of leather. So that leather relates to the human body. That pellet is the sense of duality. And we're just being played through. Right? We're part of the divine plan. Something is acting through us. And we can either resist that process, which again is part of the divine plan, or we can go along willingly with it. The best thing to do is to go along willingly with it. Also, it's symbolized by a flute, Krishna's flute. The idea here is connecting the music and the musician together. So connecting the divine play here on earth with the divine. Well, who connects that? Well, we're all here playing a part in that particular process. So you're here this week to surrender to a process, right? Over the course of that, I also wanted to point out we're having a Venus-Mercury conjunction that's building. Both of those planets are also interacting with Jupiter. Venus and Mercury are in Uttara Ashadha Nakshatra. With Uttara Ashadha, the process is one of realization, universalization, big picture rather than the small, tiny picture, right? But usually the process that happens with Uttara Ashadha is one of coming up against resistance, and having to, well, on one level, I don't want to say be humiliated, because that's a rather harsh way to say it, but take a humble perspective on things. Because it's symbolized by the planks of a bed. That's the lowest part of the bed. What is a bed? The bed is the resting place. So if you want rest from a particular situation, if you want release from a particular situation, you have to go to that space that is small. You have to go to that space that is small so that you can have the realization, so that you can use that energy of Jyeshta, as we were talking about earlier, and rise above a particular situation. So you can see that you actually may be interfering with the process that would turn in a much different direction should you just allow things to move along the way that they need to move, without your interference, without your need to guide the process, right? If you feel a need to guide the process, you're likely going to find that rather than having you working with your soul as per Uttara Phalguni energy, instead you're going to find your ego interfering with the situation, and that's the partnership you don't want, right? You don't want your ego involved with the situation. You want your mind, body, heart, and soul all working together. In order to do that, you've got to get the egocentric mind out of the way. You've got to let it remove itself from the process. You've got to use Mercury for its higher purpose, which is to give you a sense of differentiation, to help you to keep from identifying with the situation and recognize this situation is not you. What you are is something that is vaster than the situation that you're dealing with. Once you recognize that, once you recognize that your plans, ideas are not necessarily needed, and what is actually really needed is just a higher sense of perspective and a recognition of what you're being guided towards, and to follow that particular path. And over the course of this week, you're going to have a very good chance to do that. But rather than saying you got to take the high road, one could say you got to take the low road, but really what you got to do is you've got to take the low road, and then you've got to take the high road. So what's the low road? Well, you've got to be small enough. Not acting like you've got to be small enough to be big. Does that make sense? You've got to be small. You've got to be humble so that you can actually do the thing that is big, do the thing that is mature, do the thing that is right. And that is to just allow a situation to unfold as you pick up on the way that it needs to head. Participate. Don't interfere. Participate. That's going to do it for a look at your week ahead for the week of the 5th to the 11th, 2016. If you want to schedule a consultation with me, I thought I would mention that you can visit my website and you can click on the link below, and that will take you to the astrological services page. And I hope that you will watch the video on KRS channel this week. Thank you very much. Bye now.